trying. Okay, we're recording.
Okay.
All right. How are you doing today?
Fine. I'm a little nervous. I hope I get the job.
Okay. Well,
We'll see.
we will. I do know that you've got a lot of experience, so I'm very excited to hear about all of your teaching experience. So,
My name is Leah Henderson. I've taught middle school level for quite some time. Done some American history, some Texas history, and quite a bit of language arts.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we are looking for someone experienced in a lot of those areas, so
That's good.
that's very good. Okay, so what personal qualities do you think are important for teachers to possess?
Well, I think a teacher has to, it's hard, but a teacher needs to have a lot of patience. That goes without saying. It takes quite a bit. Children can be quite the challenge, especially these days, with all their different backgrounds. I think that definitely you have to have a love of children, or you're in the wrong business. Um, um, oh, you have to want to be able to relate education to them, and you have to love learning yourself, and that's a passion of mine. And so, in order to relate it to the kids, I think you need to be very much into it yourself.
I've known many of people who knew a lot, but didn't know how
And
to
to relate it.
actually relate it. So
I
that
have
is
teachers like that myself. It has kind of been a focus of mine not to do that, to make sure I got
Yes.
down on their level.
Yes, that is very true. Okay, so what do you think your greatest strengths are? I guess you just told us, kind of some strengths
Yeah.
right there with what do you think teachers need to possess?
Definitely a love of learning. And be a lifelong learner. I think it's even in our mission statement, and I totally agree with it. You need to be a lifelong learner, and that keeps you in the same perspective as the kid. And so if you see it from their point of view, you do good. It's important to want them to get it, whatever it is that you're teaching, and to see that light up in them. So it's just part of my philosophy.
That's a really good
Loving
one.
to learn, want them to love to learn.
So in the areas maybe that you could improve, what do you think those would be?
Slow down. I talk too fast. I get too excited about what I'm doing because I like it, and I want them to like it as much as I do, and I tend to get going much too fast. And maybe I have patience with them, but maybe it's the part about wait time is very important.
Yes, good
And that's
buzzword. Yes.
Very hard because one, you have so much to teach in a short time, and two, I don't like to see them put on the spot, and I don't want them to feel embarrassed, and so I tend to jump in a little too quick to help.
Right.
I'm too much of a helper at times.
Well, I can see though not wanting to put them on the spot. So that's
I
kind
don't want
of
them
a
embarrassed
great
in front of
line
the other
right
kids.
there.
I don't
That's
want them
true.
embarrassed.
So tell me about your current position and kind of describe what that's like.
In ELA, it's we have to do a lot of scaffolding and open-ended questions. It's wonderful. The kids are good at that. Differentiated instruction. We have such a different variety of kids from all walks of life, and they each need different things.
So in your current position, ELA, I mean, what do you guys do in class? Is it more of a writing class? That do you use reading and writing together?
Oh, yes. When I first started teaching, it was much more about grammar.
Oh.
Grammar is is so strange to see over the years how things change, is much less the focus now, and it's more of a whole language type thing, which is something I really wanted from the beginning anyway, but much more through reading, improving the reading, and then you work at sentence structure, writing. Writing's huge. You work at all of that through mostly a reading whole language.
I do remember though, in back a long time ago in high school, you had a grammar semester and you had a literature semester.
That's what I started out with, the grammar.
And
I kind of hate that because
it's true.
I love diagramming sentences. It was such a big game to me.
Yes. And then, myself,
it's
I
been a
taught middle
change.
school, and there wasn't a lot of time for grammar at
No.
all. It's almost something you do in the warm up and you move on.
It is. It's where a teacher like me has to learn to adjust to
Well, I
new
think
situations.
that will be a definite advantage at the elementary level, kind of coming back to that grammar background. Okay. So how do you think your coworkers would describe you?
Energetic. I'm fun. And I do like being part of a team. And it's kind of the fun part of being a teacher. And you do all get this sense of community, and each grade that comes through, you kind of get a little ownership of them. And so I think and I hope that they would think that I was a team player, and that we all work for the whole child to be educated.
Yes. So it's not just about your language arts department.
Even though sometimes I think I'm the most important, I do have to realize that it is about
there's math teachers, and there's
math are pretty important.
Yeah, they are important. Okay, so when we're looking at classroom strategies and techniques, so kind of changing the pace of this a little bit, what methods do you feel are the most successful in improving student achievement? Now, like you kind of touched on these earlier too, and not to help you too much, but when I asked you to describe your current teaching position, you really kind of threw out some,
like the differentiated
methods,
instruction and the scaffolding. Oh yes, buzzwords, but truly good words build upon prior knowledge, and you have to use that and refer back to it. It's a strong belief of mine. In fact, I leave the day's teak from the day before on the board on purpose, so that I can go back, hit it right quick before we go to what today's objective and teak will be that we'll be learning. And so that's very important. Getting to know your classroom, getting to know your kids, and studying each child's different need for learning.
That's good. So we're going to piggyback that right there, because my next question was, how do you provide for students individual differences?
Okay. I'm kind of fanatic about some things, and I'm always worried that I don't know enough about their IEPs. And so before I go home each day, I try to look at their IEPs and make sure that I'm meeting that student's need, because you're overwhelmed with 120 students a day, and you need to know. And gosh, out of all that, it's so easy to overlook maybe a quiet kid that's got an IEP and things like that. And so I need to refresh my memory and then see what I lacked and that I didn't meet that day, and make sure that I hit it the next day. So, and it doesn't take long, but it's just something I get my notebook out, thumb through each kid, kind of take a look at what they're, and then, after a while, like
you
anybody else,
get a bunch of it memorized.
You get it. You got it down. And at the first of school, you have to.
And there's some of those with the more intricate. And you want to
and then
those.
And then when you realize there might be lacking in some things or something, you go back and look at it and figure out ways.
Do you ever find yourself knowing that this is working, this isn't working?
All the time, yes. And that's something about going back and studying that, and that you realize that you're lacking in some department, and when you see those you are doing well, you kind of pat yourself on the back. Yes.
So I feel like with that, you kind of covered 504 and special education with the IEPs.
Yes.
What about your ESL kids?
Of course, being careful to use all the approaches, and we have the teachers that help us and give us suggestions about meeting their ESL, ELL needs, and it's a lot of paying attention to what that student's doing, and their way of learning and what they don't know, and they come in at your grade, but they may not have had a lot of things, and your responsibility is to get them caught up.
True.
So it's definitely meeting their individual need,
even without an IEP.
Right. Just like you would for a special ed student with an IEP. That student that's new to you, or new to even this country, you've got to meet some needs.
Okay, good. So how do you motivate your students? How do you keep them going?
Well, I am not above rewards, but and you find different things work for different classes, and each year it's different as well. But they enjoy a good way to go. I mean, I've always believed intrinsic value first, and try to instill that in them, and that they are proud for just the sake of being proud. And you applaud their good answer. And we all like, wow, great answer. That is a great answer. And so, and then, my gosh, then the other students are all going for that great answer too.
That's too, yeah. I'm going to say the next answer.
And then if you have problem with, and then sometimes you have a class that it's hard to get them all motivated and going along. And so you do whole class reward. Hey, let's get this down. Let's see if we can be successful. Let's try to get 100% or whatever. And if we do, maybe we'll have time for some little they love games. And there are so many educational games out there now that are so much fun. And why not promise them a good time and learning at the same time?
That's good. So technology then. How do you incorporate that in the classroom?
That's very good in the reward system too, that you brought that up. Technology, of course, is a big part of our district. They want us using it as much as possible. I find it can be used all the time, but it's not always for good. So you've got to be aimed at the good things, and pairing up and pair share, and giving them specific things. A scavenger hunt is so much fun with particular questions, and if they find that, then they get to go on to the next thing. And all they are doing is probably just answering simple questions, but they're excited they found it, and then they get to move to the next thing. They're learning. They think it's a big deal, and it's something kind of simple. It's a lot of fun. And then, of course, there are outstanding technological games for them to learn by.
So do you, in the past, have you used some of these technological games?
Yeah, I like Kahoot. And, there's so many of those that are like that. And we will do that sometimes on Fridays, sometimes for even warm-ups. Just insert them where you can. But then we have classes that are assigned, like, it's not exactly a homeroom class, but it's reteaching type classes that we have, and we use those a lot during those.
So almost like selected tutorials?
Yes.
Okay.
I just couldn't think of that word. Yes, tutorials.
I know what you were describing. Yes,
tutorials. And those are wonderful for that. And you can put all sorts of things into that. Vocabulary games are the most fun
Good for your ESL kids too.
And then you could go to Quizlet, make cards. There are games to play with that, and they love typing in those little answers on and making those cards on Quizlet and things like that. And you're getting technology, you're getting reteach. You're doing it all.
With such a technology drive, do you believe that the classroom should be just technology based, or do you think it's?
Well, I am an older teacher, and so I have a young partner, and so with that said, I think our minds are at different learning and stages in a while. But I think I've always been a huge technological person, and I love using it. But I think you've got to intertwine that with some personal teaching, and it's not a lecture. I call it, there's some interactive teaching. Would never do that to them or bore them to death, but some definite interacting between you and the class and individual students.
So a good balance.
Small group learning is still one of the best ways to do anything.
Okay.
Pull outs, all sorts of things.
Very good. Like good. Okay. So when it comes to parents and teachers and the relationships between parents and teachers, how do you think that could be improved?
I think it may have took me a few years to become better at this and to get that. And so, I hope principals are patient with the younger teachers. But building that, communicating with your parents is everything. And am I answering your question correctly?
You are. I really want you to keep going.
Okay.
I think you're
communicating with the parent, letting them know. And I use a thing called Remind.
Yeah.
To me, it's one of the biggest breakthroughs in education ever. It saves me lots of phone calls, lots of paper running off to remind parents when the tests are coming up. And I try not to overuse it, because parents don't want to be inundated, then they're going to ignore it. So I'm selective. But that you do phone, of course you do phone calls. I find that personal communication even better than anything, because they get to know you are a human being. You did not do that to their child. You did not. And then you get them on your side. And I'm telling you, they are your support for the rest of the year, because they know you really do like their kid and you really are interested in their kid. And
it takes them off the defensive.
Yes, and they feel like they can call you. They can ask you questions. So, and something they really love is a little newsletter at the end of the week. And sometimes I get frustrated, but if you can keep it set up basically and quick changes, but that little newsletter at the end of the week, let them know what you've done and what's been going on. Parents still like a little hard copy.
That's true.
And we may go digital on that soon, but right now we're still doing a hard copy on that.
Okay. So you are open to the idea of digital versus hard copy?
Oh yes, totally. I'm not against it. If you've got a better idea or you've got an idea you want me to try, so and I might not be with you, but I'll give it a try and I'll keep an open mind. And I'm not trying to say that to like suck up or that you make. That's the truth.
Well, I
do want to keep an open mind, because at my age, there's a lot of things out there that are new and different, and kids learning in different ways. So I want to stay open-minded.
I think kind of talking to you before this, though, before we had iPads in every classroom, there were some technology innovations that you were trying to be a part of. Before we had Chromebooks everywhere, so just trying to incorporate technology before the boom hit, basically. Yeah. So you've kind of.
Yeah, I had a grade book in DOS before we even had Windows. So yeah, I was forerunner.
Okay, so I guess promoting parental involvement. You've said that. Getting that phone call. So have you found that there's any how do parents respond to meet the teachers, and how do you feel like getting them up there and getting them in the building? What do you think works?
Well, meet the teachers, great. A lot of teachers are, a little negative at first, but once you get those parents up there and they meet you face to face, and you get to explain your class, how it's set up and its guidelines and its rules, and how you want to communicate with them and things like that. It's that
how they want to communicate with you.
Getting them in there, and whatever you can do, whatever you can offer the kids to get that parent to get up there is really important. And so that initial first contact is really, really important.
You think there's a certain time that's better, or have you found that, have you always done it the same? Do you think it could be improved?
And the school's good at this. And I guess you go through different principles and things like that, but the school has changed it up every few years and things like that. And we were last running the kids' schedule, and the parents would just move through the kids' schedule like they do during the day, and come in, and it's kind of like you give them a little lesson as you tell them how their day goes in your class. And
so that's kind of neat, because do you get all the parents kind of coming in at one time, and so you address them as the group?
Just
instead
they're the kids sitting there as your class.
That is really great.
And then you can go through. I do a lineup every day, and as a kid, I always wanted to know, what are we going to have to do today? And it just came to me, why don't I put it on the board, which is kind of meeting your TEKS and objective at the same time. And they'll say, what are we? And I say, it's right up there. And for a long time, we had school planners, and I had them write that down just so that they could go home, and parents call and say, what did they do? I said, get their planner out, and let's look at that, and let's see what they did. Did they finish? That last thing on there was independent practice. Ask them if they finished that.
Okay.
Because if they did, then they don't have any homework. And in that meet the teacher thing, you can get through that. It's wonderful. As many parents as you get there.
That is a great idea, because I just I don't like that a parent has to stand in line behind another parent, discussing their child in front of everyone.
Listen, if you ever step out in the hall, you've made a mistake. You've got to stay in there. It makes you look a little off-putting maybe at first. You've got to get them in there. Once you stand in that hall, they grab you, and they don't mean anything, but you are not going to get your group. You want to stay in there, get your group in, and say, please come in.
File them in.
Please come sit down and join us. We'll get started in just a minute. I want y'all to come be my class. And then that's totally the best way.
That is an excellent idea. I do always like to hear about, I've been under 4 principals, and we did it 4 different ways. And so that's very interesting that you bring up that perspective. Do you think, I think you've said it, getting parents on your side is a really big deal. Do you think more than once a year there should be a meet the teacher?
Yes, I do. I think you need at least halfway through, I think you need to do it again so that you can say, again, how's this going? You may be able to pick up some parents that you didn't get before. They need to know where you stand. We are still doing this. We're still trying to, and we have accomplished this much. Be impressed what your child has done. And no, you may ask them some question about something and they may not get it then, but I can tell you they do know things. They don't even know they know, So that halfway through the year is wonderful. It would be the best thing ever to have another meet the teacher.
What do you say to parents whenever they claim that you're teaching to the test?
There's not a thing wrong with that test. I don't know, I'm not really defensive, but it's a good basic knowledge test. If they don't know that, then you're not really covering. I love that, and I'm probably one of the only ones, but it keeps me on a schedule. I need to be kept on a schedule because I could stop at a story that I love, and we could spend 6 weeks like to rewrite
Back
the
in the
endings.
thematic unit days.
I could spend way too much time and get carried away. This keeps me, my scope and sequence, it keeps me on a schedule, it keeps me moving. Now, I am frustrated at sometimes, a lot of times, that I do have to move too quickly. And, but, you know, everybody does things different ways. But we do cover what needs to be covered. And that test gets you doing that. And so I'll defend it. And I just say, it's what they need to know. It's not, no reason for you. I'm going to prepare them. I'm going to teach them everything they need, and it's good basic knowledge.
You're required to teach those things with or without a test.
It's good basic knowledge, and I'm going to not just do that. I'm going to bring them up to thinking, higher level, judgmental,
yes,
and type things. So
taking them up that Bloom's ladder.
I'm tell you, we may, the test may be part of it, but we're so much more than the test.
Yes, that is true. Okay, so let's talk about a little professional development.
Oh boy.
How do you keep up with new developments in education?
Well, you know, every year we have to fill out our evaluation forms. And of course, you know, you have your standard. But I mean, you do read up on education and you do read up on the latest trends. And someone like me, that we do need to know what's going on in education. And you're going to talk with, I mean, your peers. They know things. In service, one of the best ones we ever had, we had breakout sessions, and each teacher or different teachers had been to different workshops or different areas of expertise. And we hit different breakout sessions, things we were interested in, things we needed to know. And we went in and teachers taught teachers. And it was an absolutely wonderful in service. I think that workshops have come a long way. And they have, in the last 5 years or more, maybe 5 to 10 years, they are really hitting the mark. I can tell you honestly, as a new teacher in the first 10 years easy, they just, or maybe I wasn't in the learning, but I didn't find them. Here in the last few years, they're doing
a lot more specific.
And what I've always wanted was specific lessons to help with specific things. They're hitting that now. They're giving you the material you need. So as a person who hated workshops, now I say, please, can I go to this? Will you send me to this? You know, things like that. So that keeps me up to date big time.
Okay.
Especially with the test and what you need to do to bring up those thinking and higher level skills. They're wonderful for that.
And I've noticed also with the kind of the times that schools are now more often bringing in a lot of those more interesting professional developments instead of just different people from the school getting up and teaching. They're bringing in Region 7 people and
like big muscles.
James Durham. I think it's Durham. So you've done a workshop with him.
Yes. And anyway, it's good. And they bring in these people, and I'm sure that they like pay big bucks for these people. And there's sometimes a hit and a miss. But you know, of course everybody knows Parashare, but I mean he really taught us a lot and made sure we worked with it. Collecting data, I love it, and I found ways that you collect it, you can crunch it, you can do things, you can find where there's minus, you can narrow that kid down to what they missed in what grade and what they didn't learn. It's mind-boggling the things you can do with data. There's some other, we had flipping. capturing kids' hearts. I liked because it's about kindness, and that was a few years ago. But now the big thing is kindness.
Obviously, right now, yes,
It's huge, and so it's relevant. I still have my book on that, and finding something nice to say to everybody is a good thing.
And so Flippin started out with students who came from
very low
socioeconomic
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
homes that
and built and taught us how to find positive in everything. It was very good. It was a several days workshop.
Okay.
It was very good.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. So describe maybe I guess your decision-making process. How do you let's see, or maybe like a difficult situation that you've encountered, during your first years of experience.
Um,
Talk about putting you on the spot, huh?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, those the learning your IEPs and learning how to make sure you study those, and that you being called to a meeting and not knowing enough, and I didn't want to ever be in that happened once. You don't want to ever be caught in that situation again, and so you do learn that. I thought maybe I was wrong, but backwards teaching, I'm not saying it correctly, but looking at that test and seeing what all your TEKS, what your TEKS and your scope and sequence are for that 6
Sure.
weeks, what that test has to be.
Yes.
And how you need to come backwards from that and what has to be accomplished throughout that. And so, like backward design, maybe?
That's it.
You just look at that for the 6 weeks or 9 weeks. It depends on how your school does that, and the content and what you have to accomplish, and it always seems like I'm going basic knowledge, and I don't want you to think that's the way it goes, because I'm not teaching the lesson, but I do want you to know that it's more than that. That included in all of this is just like Bloom's taxonomy and all the new things, but
right.
Bloom's is outstanding too. But that you've got to hit all those, and it's a goal every time to try to get to the top with that.
Right.
And it's usually on the board over in the objectives that we make sure.
So you go back to your lineup.
The previous, and then when the next day we get there, we hit that previous, and we try to hit a higher level question, just some quick warm up things, and try to hit that. We also do a notebook.
Okay.
Is this off?
No, I was actually,
Okay.
my mind was going there when you were talking about this. So this
we do
really neat.
like this language arts notebook, and different. It just depends, but we'll get out our notebook, and I say, oh, that's good. Let's put that in our notebook. And they get out. They've designed it, and they've got the color and play.
Taking ownership in this thing.
Yes. Oh, yes. And they're very proud of them. And after a while, when they start getting thick, they're very proud of them. But we can go back and look at things, and let's put that in our notebook. And then if we found a weakness, I'm teaching something and they are all blank, and I'll say, maybe we've forgotten. Why don't we just back up, and y'all try to look at page 16 or something. Do you see this here? Let's look at this reading passage, and let's see if we can find what we're looking for there. And it's
refer back to it.
I haven't used them. I wish I'd learned about them a long time ago, but they're wonderful.
Those were a big workshop, professional development.
And they are awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome and fun. I make mine right along with them.
Okay.
And if somebody's absent, I have mine. And I say, would you like to go up there? Here's the stuff. And you want to go up and see what, because look, if they want to copy mine and while they're doing mine, they learn something. Good.
Well, and they may need to refer back to that,
Mhm,
and so it's already there, so
That's right.
they can pick it
Well,
up the
they've got to
second
have
time.
it. They've got to have it.
Yeah.
I don't just give them the stuff and say, here, do this or something, or even from a friend, because they may not have done it exactly. I want them to have the correct material, and it's good modeling. And I'm telling you, I could make
They're
one.
still doing the work.
I do a lot of work because I make mine right along in each class. Because if you don't model it, they're not getting it. So I make like 6 notebooks, but
Okay.
it's okay.
Well, if you have a student that moves in,
And you've nailed me. That's exactly right. That we do need
Yeah.
it, and then they have one.
because I thought that's the worst case scenario, is a kid comes in November.
And then I have those bright students every year that says, Miss Henderson, would you like me to do an extra? So and so just got here, and then we go, would you? And then another said, you want me to make another one in case we get another new student? And I say, yes. And so
those little bow heads.
yes,
that- mother hens.
exactly.
The mother
That's
hens
exactly
of the
right.
room.
So we are prepared for new students.
So that kind of got me thinking, how do you deal with makeup work? Students who are absent.
At the beginning, I used a clipboard, and I just wrote everything down and put that under there. And I kept the clipboard, and I still do that each day. And I have managers in my room that have jobs, and I have a clipboard manager. And I told you I have a lineup for the board.
Mm-hmm.
And it's everything we're going to be doing that day with page numbers and the name. And
So your lineup is detailed.
it's fairly detailed. And the student will put that on that day for me. And any handouts I get, they get the extra ones, and they would put under there. Now we have gone to, it got really thick, about 6 weeks. So we now have my days of the week trays. And so it's all in the tray.
Okay.
At the end of the 6 week, at the end of the week, trays come out, everything goes to the bottom, and then we start a new week. It's really helpful to have those extras. You always need extras because kids do it. But at the end of the 6 weeks, some kids may have been out, didn't do their makeup, somebody didn't turn in it, however many times you ask them.
They have ADHD and
Yeah.
they just can't follow through.
I'm going to tell you, I might get graded off by principals. I'll take that work until I click that button, because one, I want them to be successful. But more than anything, if they do that sheet and they learn that concept, it's not about the grade. It's about that they learned what they were supposed to learn. And so I will take that work because I do want them to know. And I don't know that there's so much worksheets as they are what something we were learning or something that needed to be in their notebook or even
a journal
or even study questions for a test or something. We'll do it all until the last minute and it's not so much enabling them to be late, people, because their grade's not going to be as good as it was. And a lot of kids.
So you do still count off for it being late.
You have to, because you would be an enabler. And
but
you
for
would
the
have
policy,
everything.
after 3 days,
Yes.
we won't. So
Yes.
you're a little bit more lenient.
But there are extenuating circumstances and things
But
like that.
I like your philosophy on that.
But on the biggest part of it is they need to know what it was about.
Whereas 9 days later, policy says you shouldn't take the work.
Right.
You're going to take work because
Yeah.
instead of not doing it.
And I always okay this and discuss it with the
I mean, I
principal.
like the theory here.
And they've always been.
So it's not
okay
a wash
with it.
anymore.
No.
You
And
actually
there is a grade penalty, but we still
they
get
still did
some
the work.
credit. And the school's very adamant about wanting everybody to pass as much as possible.
we've gotten into a no
it's a
zero.
win. It's a win-win-win. So we do get the work. They do get the concept, hopefully, and
I feel like
everybody's
we're
happy.
kind of transitioning into something like that, though, is where, I could remember after 3 days, I won't take the grade. And now we don't want zeros in the grade book at all. We want to work kids in to get their stuff turned in.
Yes.
So we're kind of, tipping the scales to the other end.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, it is all about the
you may
kid.
have been a forefront runner in that one.
I hope so. I'd like to be a front runner or something.
Okay. Let's see. Let's talk classroom management. Okay. So do you have any systems that you use to manage behavior in the classroom?
Yeah. After years and years and years. I really, I don't want it to be a brag, but I've never really had big problems. We're engaged and we have a lot to do, and we really don't have time for off-task behavior. And we have good time, and maybe because we're having a good time, we don't have as much off-task behavior. And I like to have fun, and I love what I do, and so it's a pretty fun classroom, and so that's not too bad. But you still have those that aren't, and I explain all of this up front, show them everything's, policy, what policy is, what classroom management rules are, how the classroom has to run. We go over it and over it and over it. In the first week, they're trained.
Okay.
But they do know that on my podium is going to be a clipboard, and it's got each class, it's got their name, and it's got the infractions.
Okay.
And while I'm teaching, I'm not going to stop. We don't have time for that kind of thing. I'm not going to write you up or give you whatever. But while I'm teaching, I just walk over to my podium while I'm talking, find that name, find that little square, what it is, and put a dot and just keep on moving. I can't tell you how everybody sits a little straighter once I walk over to that podium. Everybody's back on task. There are consequences. They know there's a rule. I live by rule and consequence. I raise my children. There's a rule. If you break that rule, there's a consequence. So after so many marks or something, we will have a conference. And then if there's more, then there has to be
Code of conduct.
by the code of conduct.
Yeah.
But I've never found anything that works so good as that little clipboard. And they'll have to, did you put a mark on it? Did you put a mark on it? And I say, you're fine. Everything's fine. Just needed to make a little note. Everything's fine. And smile and just go on. And then the kid that needs to, you can do it privately that way. And don't be calling them out and embarrassing and things like that. And of course, you can't be walking by and standing by them. Proximity.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Little pat on the desk even. You with me? You with me?
Yeah.
Stay with me here. Those kind of things. But experience is a lot. And I think they're really prepping new teachers even more now than they were when I came through, because it was difficult. But, it doesn't take long before you get to where you do not want to be run over. You want to be in charge. And I do like them, but I am going to be,
You got to get your job done. Yeah.
Even though they know it's their class and we're all in it together, but we have to get on with things too.
Right. Have you ever had a student that was difficult? How did you manage that student? Or a type of student?
Yes. Okay. Yes. And we've had a few of these that absolutely will not do anything. It's the most frustrating thing ever. And it was a real learning experience. But I couldn't give up. You can't give up on them. You have to, as in not even pick up the pencil. So, or have a pencil, or have a notebook, or make a notebook. So helping and this kid was behind. You learn your child, you learn the background, you see why the behavior's there, you collect all your data,
And you kind of opened your heart.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then it usually is a little heartbreaker, but anyway, then you do this, and then you just keep giving them the tools to do it. If it's me opening the notebook and saying, look, if I've cut out what needs to be glued in the notebook, look, here, do you think you could stick the paper in the notebook? Any action that's positive and stuff. In one class, it was a very small class, and I'm telling you, the kids were amazed that this child would do nothing. But we all liked him, and we wanted him to succeed. And the class never said a word. The class began to give him a little encouragement. Hey, go do this with us. You can do this, or cut something out and put it up there. Look, if you glue that in. It was very heartwarming. It was a very small class, and they kind of adopted him to kind of
Everybody took ownership.
And it was an extremely, but we just didn't. The class, we didn't give up. We just kept pushing him along and trying. And I mean, he did learn some things, and he got some questions right on the STAR test, and
Okay.
you know,
Whereas he was trying to do nothing.
I'm talking from zero,
Right.
began, answered some questions. I mean, I thought the kids were going to fall out, but
Aw.
don't give up. I mean, that's all I can say is you can't.
So some days it's almost hand over hand, and
Yeah,
then other
I mean,
days you might get.
I've never experienced. I've had that don't want, but I've never had one that absolutely just wasn't going to. But we just didn't give up, and we kept on. And the kid was going to fail most. But the point is for them to learn something and take with them. So we kept plodding away and helping
feeding
him
it to
along.
him, huh?
And I'm telling you, started answering some questions. We felt very successful, him as well as the rest of us.
Okay, that's great. Okay, well, I think that this was a great interview. I've got a lot of good information. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, I feel like I've answered so many that you kind of helped and given me back. You know,
I felt engaged.
the questions were pretty good.
I know. I just wanted to jump in and have conversation. It was hard
Yeah.
to keep it interview-ish because
it was
was
fun, wasn't it?
I was kind of excited about some
Kind
answers.
of like the classroom. We have a lot
so
of fun.
engaging. Yes. Okay. Well, I really appreciate you being here, and
Thank
we'll
you.
let you know.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.